The Boxster GTS is a cabriolet with a fabric roof and drain pipes, 4, 2 on each side, and they used to contain these, but no longer. Let's find out why. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, welcome to Project 981 with my Boxster GTS. Now it's a lovely warm sunny day in the UK, and that made me think about when it rains, and when it rains what happens to where the water goes on the hood. And there's a bit of a consensus if you hunt around on YouTube that what happens in here can be improved by removing these. These are the little plugs that are supposed to do a job inside here in between the water entering the top and draining out the bottom, but they can get bunged up with dirt, debris, maybe even insects over the lifetime of the car. I've taken these two out from the other side. In this video I'm going to show you how to take them out. The side doesn't really matter. This is the near side on my car, and to do that it requires us to remove this panel here, because these sit sort of up inside here, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm also going to do the job as I typically do, a little more thoroughly. I'm going to take the wheels off, which means I can then more easily remove the wheel arch liners and have a bit of a clean around in there too. So if you want to hang around and see what happens when I do that and how to remove those, this is the video for you. Let's get started. The first job, as ever, is to remove the wheels, and to do that I need to jack the car up. So let's make a start. So before I go any further, why am I actually doing this? Well, if you hunt around on the internet, on YouTube, what you'll discover is that this system of drain pipes and bungs is good in theory, but can be compromised. The bungs act as a bit of a barrier. If you get too much dirt in there, eventually they'll plug up, and when it rains, the water will overflow the top of the pipes, and where it goes, sadly, is into the passenger compartment, whereupon it drains down into the footwells underneath the passenger and indeed the driver's side. And it finds in there some expensive ECUs and electronic control units, which can get frazzled and can be damaged and indeed broken and are expensive to replace. So this is very much a preventative maintenance piece of work. The quick way to do this is not to take the wheels off, but to use a small Torx screwdriver, and to then remove enough of the wheel arch liners to get the fastenings for the sill off. And there's plenty of videos showing you how to do that the quick way. But this is the longer way. It gives me a chance to have a bit of a clean out as well. So that's why I'm doing it. Let's crack on. Okay, so I've got the car jacked up now. I've left the actual jack in place, front and back, or back and front. We've got the axle stands under load, so that's all good. So the next job is to remove the liners, the wheel arch liners, which are, I mean, it's not a huge bit of plastic, that piece of plastic there, various studs and screws to remove those, and then on the front, slightly larger piece, but the camera in here wraps it around slightly, but again held in place by a quantity of fastenings, so we'll get those off first. So tools of choice for the wheel arch liners: a Torx 20 T20. Torx is the sort of the star. I mean, this is a nightmare to focus on. The star-shaped one of those, and just a regular 10mm hex socket to get in here. Now, in a slightly sort of Porsche sort of way, there's actually one screw which comes up underneath here, and that's actually a Torx 25. So you need a Torx 20 and a Torx 25. You can see my camera reflects in there. Now, there we go. So that's come off. Let's just turn that round. So that, I suspect, has been off before, may not have been cleaned terribly thoroughly. Cast on 51,000 miles, and we can see the accumulation of gunge and dirt up in here. Exposure contrast is a bit dramatic, but this is the reason I've taken this off, partly so we can access more easily the fastenings for the sill, but also just have a bit of a clean out in here. So I shall go and remove the other arch, and we'll see what arch liner, we'll see what that reveals. So same again on the front. The bolts or the fastenings on the underside are the Torx 25, which are these, they are ever so slightly longer. I'm sure I can show you. There we go. So the 25's ever so slightly longer than the 20s, and generally speaking the 25s are underneath. On the front there's 1, 2, 3, and it's worth just having a look at the panel here. If I can focus with, there we are, just to get a reference for how this fits with the center point. So either film it or take a photo. I'll take a still after this just so you can see how this fits underneath and overneath around the bits and pieces here when you come to put it back in. So that's now come out. Just wiggle it out. It's got some natural curve to it, so you have to be careful to not sort of drag it off the bodywork. And then we can see up inside here, there's the screen washer bottle. Not too bad on this side, bit of grubbiness. Yeah, that's all right. And it gives us the access we need to take the seal off as well. So we'll give that a wash as well, and wipe down the arch liners themselves. Okay, time to start preparing the sill to be removed. And underneath the sill there are 8 fastening points, 8 of those holes, and they should have, mine doesn't, but they should have these little fasteners in them, which are just to push in and rotate through 90 degrees. So they're not difficult to remove. They should all be lined up when they're in place. The fixture on the back runs parallel to the chassis, so you rotate it through 90 degrees and then just gently pop them out. There's 8, they all need to come out, so that's probably the easiest thing to start with. Right, back in the rear wheel arch, and there's a single fitting just up in here. Again, it's a Torx, which needs to come out next. Right, we've taken the Torx out from behind there, and the next job is to get underneath here and to remove the various fasteners in there. To do that, we need to lift this rubber seal, and then there is a school of thought that suggests you need to lift this piece as well, which on the driver's side has the sockets for the frunk and the boot. On the side is just a piece of trim, but I think we can lift this alone. This piece slides out. It doesn't come up to be removed, it goes out horizontally, so parallel to the sill. So we'll see if we can lift that and just slide this out. And that will then reveal some extra fastenings under here which we need to pop off. Let's have a go at that. Okay, so this is just a sort of friction fit, and you should be able to just get your fingers under here and just gently lift it up. It says confidently, go from the back, stand a bit of a trim removal tool. There we go. So you can just gently prise that up. And with that loose, it should just pull out. There we go. It's just a friction fit, so it really doesn't need much force. And with that out of the way, just be mindful there's some gunk here, which I think is the sealant or glue from the 2 panels being joined. But that should just lift up and be pushed back gently. And that then reveals the back of this. And this just literally slides forward. If we can get our fingers in there. There we go. Now, how does that work? Well, it works by virtue of 1, 2, 3, 4 slots, grooves. This is back to front, and and that's why it comes out horizontally. Let me show you 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll just pick the camera up and show you the male parts. Let's consider those to be the female, the male parts it goes into. Let's just put that down. So I'll show you the bit outside in the shade. So you can see there's these blue 1, 2, 3, 4 blue studs. Let's consider them to be studs. And if you look at the profile of them, you can see it's a slide in and out, or indeed out and in to start with. And that's all it takes to remove that piece. So you can start to see why there's no practical requirement to remove this piece of trim. You can do if you want, it just comes up, a bit of Velcro, but in all honesty, no requirement to do that. Now, the next thing we need to do is to remove the black fasteners. The blue ones don't need to come out. They are fixed, ostensibly fixed, and they only work on that sill piece. So we need to remove these next, and we do that by putting a trim removal tool very gently behind the back and just prising it up. This is plastic, so be careful with that. It will flex, that's fine. Let's not leverage it too much. Bear in mind this is covered by the sill cover, so if we damage this, not the end of the world, but you might want to just use a cloth if you're that way inclined. So I'll just pop those out next. So this is the point a day later where you realise the bit of film that was intended to show you how to pop out the black fasteners didn't make it to the cut. So back a day later, this is the trim tool I used, and it's tempting to think you use that end to get it in there, but you'll see that the depth of the tool makes it too long. So actually if you turn it round and hook that up and underneath the back of the plastic where the tab is, you can then very gently, and I'll show you from the side, you can very just gently roll it up like that. So roll it on the back of the trim tool, and it'll get the tip here right up to the base of the shank of the fastener. Underneath it's about I don't know, 15 mil in. Pop it in, roll it back on itself, and it'll just pop up. It might, from memory, it might pop the whole thing out, but it might just otherwise loosen it off, and you can then just pull it out with your fingers. So that is what you need, and I recommend using this end to get it out. Okay, at this point, we have to just gently pop the back from here out, and it should allow us to then remove the rest of the sill. Now, this feels a bit counterintuitive, but we want to get up inside here and just pop, 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 pop. Taking care to try and avoid touching the face of the panel, which is a little bit easier said than done. There we go. You can see all the, and there it goes. So supporting that, the bottom should swing out, and then it just pops out with a sort of friction fit at the far end. So a quick tip at this point, as you watch me fumble with the sill, if you're doing this on your own, once the sill is off, support the middle of it with a box or something of a similar height to the car, so it doesn't drop down. The shark's fin end, for want of a better description, lean against the back of a chair for sake of argument, so it doesn't twist and fall outwards. And then you can walk around the other side of the door, get your fingers on the friction fit end and gently pull that out, which is what I eventually did. Okay, that is the sill off. I brought it into my garage and I've just propped it up with the painted side facing the wall with a cloth to sort of avoid damage. Now, just let's look at this end. This is the far end that I was just removing. It's kind of a friction fit. It really is. There's no fastening here. There's a couple of little lips there which will give you some resistance. You just need sort of the tabs just very gently sort of push down and pull out. It will come. As you can see, there's nothing holding it in place, and just the dirt from being under the door hinge, really. Everything else is kind of what you'd expect. So that's 50 years, 51,000 miles, 9 years of grubbiness. That's interesting. There's a 323 on there, so that probably tells us when it was possibly last off by the garage. And who knows, what does that mark mean? I don't know. But that, I'll give that a quick clean, and then we can do some polishing work more easily on the painted side where it's had the plastic trim sitting on it. And you've got access at the back to the air intake there. So with the sill now off, we've got access to the air intake, which is here, obviously, in front of us. And there are two of the stud, I don't know if you can see this, this isn't, there we go, two of the stud fittings. I don't think it's focusing, but one there and one above. They're 10mm. You need a slightly deeper shank to get into them, but we'll just pop those out, and then the that part, the whole part, will just come out and away, and that'll give us access to the bung holes. So that's the intake out, and you can see there's a fastening point there, a stud at the base. The mounts on the other side are set at the back. These tiny two little, they're just protrudences really, and they fit in those, a bit difficult in the sunshine, sorry viewers, they fit in, if I can get the, hang on a sec, they fit into here, into those. So there's two of those. So if you then consider the aspect of it, you undo the studs and then you gently pull the plastic off the end of the stud, and you just slide the whole thing ever so slightly that way, and then just pull it out like that. And there are the drain holes and the plugs. So let's do this live on camera. I should say, don't fiddle with your buttons as you're moving your camera around. Right, there are the drain holes. Let's have a look. They very gently screw out, and lo and behold, we have what looks like a cherry stone in there. Although in fairness, the back of that is otherwise not too bad. Let's have a look at the other one. That's slightly bigger and sitting up there. Gosh, the sunshine is bright today. Let's just give that a turn and a gentle pull. Out it comes. And actually, all credit to the team at Harbour Cars, that is on the money. So those are out, and the next job is to clean the tubes, check and clean the tubes for here. And then, thinking back to what we've done to get to this point, I'm going to give the whole damn thing from the wheel arches at the rear, along the sill, underneath the sill, down the front and into the front of the wheel arch, a damn good clean. So let's crack on with that. Okay, so cleaning is well underway. These are the two wheel arch liners, front and rear. That's the inside of the air intake, which will be more familiar viewed that side on. And I have worked my way, I've taken all the mud off loose and dry, and then I've got in here with some citrus degreaser spray, which I left to dwell for 30 seconds or so. And then I've just used a stiff brush and some filtered water. Well, the filtering is irrelevant really, unless you want hard watermarks, which I don't. So just stiff brush, degreaser, and got the worst of that off. There's a little bit of something there. But as you can see, that's come up really well. And what's very encouraging, similarly, is that behind all that mud is absolutely zero sign of corrosion, as you would hope, but quite reassuring nonetheless to discover that that's all in good nick. So I'm going to let that dry. It's nice and warm today. It'll dry of its own accord pretty quickly. Then I'll put just a layer of, probably just a sort of a spray on wax. As you can see, it doesn't need corrosion treatment, but it'd be quite nice just to put something on to know it's been done. So that's that. Then we work our way along the sill, and underneath has been done. I'm going to clean this a little bit more. I've just taken the very worst of it off. You can see how that sort of friction fit works down here at this angle far more clearly. Go underneath the door and then along the sill. Far more obvious, not that it needs to be clean to see this, but this is the sort of the aperture that the locking pin onto the side of the door goes in. You shut the door, and you can kind of tell the drains of work because there's hard watermarks on the paint here, which would have come from water flowing out of the drain holes, having the car having been washed with the roof up and down. So again, a degreaser. I used a microfiber cloth. This is all covered by the sill, so there's no paint here that we need to be careful of other than this section here. I'll use microfiber cloth just because you don't want to scratch it unnecessarily, even if you're not going to see it. That's less mud and more just a lack of paint, I think. And then the rear wheel arch, as you might expect, much the same as the front. It's come up really well compared to what it was before. All the various components in there, up over the top, and yeah, happy with that. Get it to focus, or maybe not. There we go. So again, similarly, just a quick spray of something on here, more for the sense of finishing the job off than any actual practical need. But and then yeah, making sure that these studs are all clean and free of mud before we screw anything back onto them. So I'm going to go over the whole lot again now with a cloth and some detailing spray and a bit of wax. Just get the worst, the sort of the remainder of it off. And then the next job will be to clean the actual inside of the sill itself, which is not so much covered in mud, but just stuff covered in grime really. So I'll use the same here. I'll use some citrus degreaser and a cloth and take care just to not damage the other side, the reverse, which is the painted, polished side. I will pay attention to this point, which is largely hidden by the door, but is nonetheless on the sort of the outside of the car, but really hard to reach when you're working on the car normally. So it's a good opportunity just to deep clean in there, remove that dirt, just very lightly polish away anything here. So yeah, so that's where we've got to. I'll press on with that. So I've reached the point where everything's ready to go back on. The wheel arch liners have come up really well. They're not damaged in any way particularly, so yeah, happy with those. Air intake just nicely cleaned. I previously treated the insides of this with G-Technic C4 sealant, so that's holding up quite well. I can apply some more of that in due course. And then let's have a look at the car. Wheel arch is now done, just wiped down with some spray. Very happy with that. Yep, nothing wrong with that. And then getting in, not entirely into there, but getting in there sufficiently to lift all the dirt, and then along the base of the sill, underside, as good as it needs to be. Bear in mind it's going to be covered up. And then into the door itself, I've polished where the plastic plate meets the exposed frame. I've given that a polish. There's still some marks there, you can see those. That's just literally where friction has rubbed the clear coat, but it's come up pretty well. This is all hidden, but I've just wiped that down as I described earlier. And then similarly, there's a point here where the plastic, you can just see a mark there that's left somewhere in here, is where the plastic sits on that frame. That's all good, and the rest of this is covered, so that's all pretty smart really. So they're the bungs, engine intake. I think think it might be, well, there's a fan in there of some such. I've got a little bit of polish just very, very carefully on the underside of there, because that's obviously visible as a seam afterwards. So that's done. And then likewise, just up to this point here, the camera's not having a very good focus time. And then the wheel arch, as per before, with a bit of spray. Doesn't really need it, it's come up pretty well. So yeah, so there we go. And then finally, and I'll be honest, this is a bit of a pain to do, a much cleaner sill, inside of sill. And then crucially, I mean, yeah, how long's a piece of string? How much dirt do you lift off? But crucially, the top section here, where what is here, the trailing edge, so the further edge, again, amounts to a seam visible from the outside. So just a very quick bit of polish on there, down the edge, and then I've polished on here, along the, again, where the front of the plastic GTS plate sits. And then lastly, the bit I talked about earlier, where the door frame sits, where that goes into the body, but this bit sits proud. It's hard to get to, so that's obviously now better. Yeah, so everything's ready to go back on. I'm going to have a cup of tea, because it's taken a while. And then I will very carefully reassemble everything, and we will do the disassembly in reverse. Right, a nice cup of tea going on. Here are the fastenings, just in case you take them all off. Can't remember what they all do. Is that focusing? More or less. The plastic ones, these are plastic. They go on the metal studs in the wheel arches. The longer T25 Torques, they have a little shank on them. They go underneath the sill. The shorter T20s, they go variously sort of in the wheel arch and other places. 4 plastic press fits for the top of the sill into the base of the door frame, and then the last 2 metal ones, which look the same as those, but are actually metal and have a sort of built-in washer effect. They are for the airbox mount. I will put a daub of grease on all of these just to stop them from corroding any further when they go on. Likewise on the studs. Okay, I think it's time to start rebuilding. Right, the sill is back in position now. Pro tip, it probably requires 2 people to put it back on, because you need one person down this end to locate those 2 press pieces in, and then basically just gently push them in. If you have the door fully open, it will interfere with the piece behind here, and you won't be able to get these far enough. You won't be able to get the entire sill far enough left. So if you've got the door open fully, move it back 1 stop like that. You can then slide it that way, and it'll line up correctly. And you can tell when it's lined up because these holes here magically appear. So with that end done, then work back up here, and then gently just press, 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 and press it in, and you can see we get a nice tight finish. So with that done, I've got in my hand, gloved hand, excuse me, right, so these just literally go in, and we can more or less just push those in. I might just need to give them a bit of a tap with something, but those go in like that. I'll just give us a little tap, and then I'll get started under the wheel arch. Oh yes, now when you're putting this piece back in, this outer piece sandwiches the middle baffle. So when you're pushing this in, make sure that the shelf is sitting in between the ridge. Just one thing to keep an eye on when you put it back in. Right, let's get the wheel arch liners back in. Right, rear wheel arch liner on. Quick reminder, there's 2 studs at the top, there's 2 T20s there, one there, one there. There's another T20 there, and there's a T25 under there. You can see that there. And there is also a T20 just, hang on, there, which is securing the sill to the wing. So that's your fastener count in the rear wheel arch. Right, just a quick reminder of fasteners in the front wheel well. We've got 2 studs there and there, T20 there, and then 2 T20s up there, a T20 here, and then 2 T25s there and there. So a few more in the bay here. Don't forget to check your positioning of the panel, copy the other side if you need a reference, assuming that the other side's come off the correct way too. Right, so those are on, and you'll notice I've put the 8 pieces back in under the sill, so we're looking pretty good. Next, and indeed almost last, is to reinstate the door cap here and then put the rubber seal back in. So let's do that. Okay, so a quick reminder that the blue pieces stay in place, the black ones come out, and you'll see I put this back in. That's had a bit of a clean, come out quite well actually. Let's make sure we've got no grit or anything at the ends, because we're going to push it in, and we want to line up. You can actually tell, Porsche, bless them, actually there's only 3, but then there's 4 very, very tiny little marks which coincide with the female part on the outside. So if we line up visually those, give that thing a last quick dust, and then line those up. Somewhere like that, we should be able to feel them purchase. Yep, okay, and then at that point it's really just a question of pushing them in. And then we've just got the rubber seal to put back. So we'll do that now. There it goes. I'll probably need to work it up a bit. There we go. There it goes. That sits down nicely. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is more or less that. Just check that the rubber is sitting on the top of the seal at the back in case it's somehow got itself underneath there. That all looks good, and then we're pretty much done. Now when I brushed all the mud off, there's a lot of dust in the air, so the car is covered in a film of dust. So my last job is going to be just to hoover the dust out of the inside here. I'll very carefully dust off the bodywork, and actually, in light of the amount of dust on here, I was going to just put a bit of detailing spray. I think I'm going to leave it. Probably the car now needs a wash, but everything is back in place. We haven't got any fasteners left on the bench, so that's good. That's cleaned up really well. That's back in place. Seals in, bungs out. Job's a good one. So just in case you thought I never drove the car, I thought I'd finish this video in the car for a little shakedown drive, getting those wheel nuts just bedded in nicely back on the hubs. and the wheels. So that's the drain plugs taken out, the sill removed, wheel arch liners removed, everything washed down, cleared down, checked over, polished up, put back in place, and actually that's pretty much how I found the other side as well. So the car's in great condition under that mud, which is no longer there, and yeah, I mean there's wear and tear. It's 9.5 years old. There is 51,000 miles worth of chips on the sill, with marks where it's rubbed. It's all part and parcel of owning a reasonably leggy GTS, and I'm really pleased with what I found. So I hope you found that useful. To be honest, if you've had your car in the garage for a long percentage of its ownership, you probably don't need to worry about your bungs. You know, it's really the outdoor debris from leaving under trees and the like that'll bung them up. But if you want to take them off, I hope you found the video useful. You can see how to do it. Don't forget, it might help to take the sill off and put it back on again. At that point, you have to remove the friction fit with a second person to help you. Otherwise, it's a job you can do on your own. And yeah, I hope you've seen a few things there that might inspire you to do the job yourself. If you've enjoyed this, do leave some comments. I enjoy responding to the comments. Give us a like as well. If you've enjoyed the program as part of the series, video as part of the series, by me subscribe, you get notifications when they come through too. I've enjoyed it. I'm going to go finish getting my T's and P's up. Oh, I think the T's and P's are up to the level already, so the last few little run home should be a bit more lively. In the meantime, my thanks again for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Cheerio.